8 people at an outdoor mall in Boulder, Colorado, calling for the release of Israeli hostages in Gaza, were injured on Sunday by a man police say attacked a crowd with makeshift incendiary devices and a flamethrower. To talk about this and more is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari. Lisa, the suspect is in custody and the FBI has identified the man as an Egyptian man in the U.S. illegally. What else can you tell us about him?
Horrific, horrific. A man who is so ideologically driven, so radicalized. He thinks he's going to free Palestine by trying to take the lives of peaceful protesters. These were peaceful protesters, mainly Jewish protesters, who were protesting peacefully for the return of the 58 hostages that are still left in Gaza, being held by terror group Hamas. And to think that, this story hasn't spread so quickly. Someone wrote on social media, why is it that we knew about George Floyd in minutes? And in this case, peaceful protesters that were attacked, to be killed by a radicalized man. Nobody knows about this story. And Reuters this morning, Naveen, even tried to bury this lead and say just a man threw incendiary devices at protesters. Nothing about his radicalization, nothing about the
Wow.
motive, nothing about who these people were, that they were peaceful protesters, and mainly they were elderly. That's the crazy part. There's also children in attendance, but those who did get hurt,
Wow.
I believe eight, one critically, were elderly between, I think, 60 and 80 years old. The man overstayed his visa, a man from Egypt, 45 years old, overstayed his visa and now is in custody. But this is a horrific, horrific scene, and only under 2 weeks from the murder of the couple, the boyfriend, girlfriend that were killed in Washington, D.C. after leaving another peaceful event, a gala that was, celebrating peace or trying to bring about peace in the Middle East. So horrific, horrific. We have to put a stop to this. This is going to be, just the coming attractions of what is to come in the Western world. We're watching as it unfolds in Europe as well, with stabbing attacks, car ramming attacks. These are do-it-yourself type terrorists that have taken it upon themselves. They think they're going to free Palestine by killing innocent people in the West. That is the call of jihad that they subscribe to. An example has to be made out of this man and others who try to pull this. This is just horrific.
Horrific is the perfect word to describe this. I can't imagine what it would be like to witness people like age 52 to 88 being set on fire. Now, speaking of terrorism, the U.S. government is taking what they call a dramatically different approach by using terrorism-related charges against drug cartels. What else can you tell us about this tougher federal approach to drug trafficking?
Yeah, I think this is a great way to up the ante at the borders. Look, as you know very well in Canada, our neighbors to the north, that we have an issue with the borders, both in the north and in the south. We have nefarious people coming through and continuing up north, and we have nefarious objects coming through. We have a drug problem in this country, whether it's fentanyl killing, young people in our suburbs or other types of narcotics. There is a problem. So this is a good way to start really cracking down, to up the charges, treat them as terrorists. Again, make an example out of the few so that we don't continue having this problem going forward. And really, clamp down. This is the time to do so. I think this is a great way also to partner up with our neighbor in the South, Mexico, and again with Canada, to find issues and interests that we all have aligned, and to work together to bring about justice, to keep people safe, to keep drugs out of young people's hands. That's taking senseless, killing people senselessly throughout all of our countries. And I think this is a great way to start doing that.
Russia's Vladimir Putin and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky met in Turkey with U.S. President Donald Trump. The warring sides said they have agreed at peace talks to exchange more prisoners of war and return the bodies of 12,000 dead soldiers. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan described it as a great meeting. Lisa, does this meeting signify any breakthroughs on a proposed ceasefire?
Meanwhile, we have the one of the most escalated exchanges of fire over the weekend, where you have Ukraine actually plans an attack on 40 fighter jets in Russia. This is an attack that had been planned for a year and a half without the United States knowing. They informed the Pentagon after the fact. So this is something that they did not want to be stopped. They wanted to really show Russia that they can also fight back and not completely be the one on the on the back foot going into these negotiations. So I think this was a very important attack over the weekend. Russia called it a terrorist attack. Obviously, they were blindsided. They didn't know this is when their fighter jets were resting, basically in resting phase, not out on the field. So it was, it was a very smart and calculated attack, and sets them back. These are their fighter jets. So look, we could have all the talks we want until we have the Volodymyrs getting together and deciding that neither side will attack and both sides will agree on the concessions that will be made. We're not going to have any sort of ceasefire, and we're not going to have an end to this conflict. Before it was Putin. Now, I think after bringing Putin to the negotiating table, which is an accomplishment in and of itself, this latest attack will be a setback to that endeavor.
Right, and I heard that attack was 18 months in the making, and even the Pentagon was kept in the dark until it actually happened. Now, Trump has berated Zelensky in public in the Oval Office, and he's called Putin crazy, but both countries are keen to keep Trump engaged in the peace process. What are their reasons?
I think both sides, I think Trump is right to say that both sides do want an end to this war, right? They want an end, but both sides want their own needs met in the compromise. So that will be what is difficult, and both are crazy leaders. I don't think Trump is wrong in that assessment. Putin, we know he's a madman. He's a statesman who wants land, and that's what he perceives as power. And Zelensky is not going to back down. I think he wants to show the world that he is not going to take it standing from Putin, and that he will fight for his country and for his people as far as he can go. And that is why he has gone on so many tirades and has come to the United States how many times to beg for money, and has gone to Europe to beg for money to continue fighting back. So I do think they both want that exit ramp. I think what they will agree upon in terms of what that means will be different, but the fact that they are engaging is a good thing. We hope to see an end to this very soon.
An Iranian diplomat has said that they are ready to reject a U.S. proposal to end a decades-old nuclear dispute on Tehran's uranium enrichment. Now, after multiple rounds of talks between Iranian and American officials, several obstacles remain. What are the details on this, Lisa?
Yeah, so as of this morning, the Islamic Republic officials have rejected the offer that is in front of them. They're calling it unilateral, meaning it's just one-sided. It's not something that they can agree on. It actually will be unilateral, because this is not a conversation like the one we're seeing between Russia and Ukraine, where one side says one thing, the other side volleys, you said the other side, and they kind of try to come to some sort of compromise. This is the United States preparing a document and putting it in front of the Islamic Republic, and they will say yes or no. So in that regard, what they have put before them so far seems like it's out of the realm of what these mullahs will accept. Now, does that mean that there will not be a deal? Perhaps, because the United States and Trump has said several times that the only deal to be had with the Islamic Republic is a good deal. Now, recall in 2018, Trump pulled out of the already existing nuclear deal that President Obama had negotiated. He called it a useless deal. He ripped it up in May of 2018, and now he's trying to get into another deal. So this deal has to be a good deal. But what does that mean? For him, it means that they have to completely dismantle their nuclear program. Now, will the mullahs agree to that? It doesn't look like they want to do that. It will completely defang them of any program. And we know that they're either at nuclear capability or very, very close to it. And in my assessment, they've been very close to it for a very long time. So they're probably at that capability. And that is, for all intents and purposes, the intel that we have to work with. So if we're dealing with a madman country led by the mullahs, who have, called their sworn enemies, Israel, the little Satan, and the United States, the big Satan, it behooves us to defang them before moving forward. So in the meantime, there's a maximum pressure campaign. There are crippling sanctions on the regime, and that will continue. And that is actually something that is wonderful about this diplomatic overture, is that all things are happening at once. We are, employing many tools to try to minimize the reach and the capabilities of the regime.
Too many madmen running our world right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Poland has elected conservative Karol Nawrocki as their next president. U.S. President Donald Trump backed the conservative candidate who won 50.89% of the vote. That's a narrow victory over the liberal candidate Rafał Trzaskowski. Now, Nawrocki succeeds Duda, who was also a conservative and whose second and final term ends August the 6th. What can you tell us about the importance of this election, Lisa?
Very important. This is basically a global referendum, right? We're looking at this small, tiny country, and what does this election have to do with anything going on in the world? Well, the international community is up in arms about Trump's tariffs, about what's going on in the Middle East, about all the global instability, the war in Russia, Ukraine. So Trump coming into office and promising that he's going to do X, Y, and Z, and it's already June and he hasn't done many of those things. He's done some of those things. Some of the bigger items still remaining when it comes to global policy and it comes to the tariffs. Things have not been worked out or ironed out yet. So when we come back to the issue of Trump supporting this candidate, the fact that he got the support, even though it was narrow, under 51%, it does show that that support does still mean something in the global community. So it is a referendum. We're looking here in the midterms of the United States. Everyone is worried because of these very unsettling things that are still going on. Trump has planted a lot of seeds. We haven't seen the results of those things settled yet. So people are questioning that. But I think this is a very important election to look at as a referendum to say, well, his words still mean something in the global community.
Israel Defense Forces are being accused of shooting Palestinian civilians collecting humanitarian aid. Now, reports from the Hamas-run health ministry and witnesses say that at least 26 Palestinians were killed and 175 were wounded. The IDF is denying these accusations and has released drone footage that shows what took place. What can you tell us about these heinous acts of violence?
Yeah, it's horrific. Look, these Palestinians, we've seen this before. They try to get the aid and they're either shot at, they're pushed back, they're beaten up, they're not allowed to get the aid. The aid is hoarded, they're hungry, they're starving, and then the world is up in arms about what Israel is doing. Now, the IDF provided drone footage to say, wait a minute, you're feeding these headlines to the mainstream media, they're eating it up, and in the meantime, that is not what happened. So the mainstream media tried to peddle the story as the Israeli soldiers shooting at the Palestinians trying to get the aid. So make it make sense, as they say. Israel allowing the aid to go through, but then shooting at the people trying to get the aid, it makes no sense. Now, when you think about this, and someone pointed it out this morning, a lot of these mainstream media outlets, major ones, by the way, major cable networks, major newspaper outlets are using stringers, what we call stringers in the field, to bring them these stories. A lot of these stringers have proven to be Hamas operatives. So imagine these double agents that are Hamas operatives that are also feeding stories to the mainstream media that is buying them and basically putting them out. So whatever they tell them, they're putting out. Also, when we're quoting the Gaza Health Ministry, who are we quoting? We're quoting a terror organization. We're quoting Hamas. So this is absolutely something that has to be corrected. This is very damaging. When you connect the dots and you look at what happened in Boulder, Colorado, we have a responsibility as journalists. We have a responsibility to tell the truth. When we peddle stories like this and we frame Israel and we frame the Jews as doing X, Y, and Z, we are creating and adding to global Semitism, anti-Semitism. When we are not allowing these stories to come out, we are peddling and we are pushing global anti-Zionism. And this is an endemic that we have seen for a very long time. So the media completely complicit in this case. And I hope that now that this footage has been put out there, that they go back and they correct this and they actually put out the correct details in that it was Hamas that was shooting at their own people. Something else that I just want to say very quickly is that Hamas is spiraling out of control. They've lost this war. And as we're seeing that, they will continue to try to at least win the propaganda war. And this is why we're seeing a lot of these headlines trying to say, well, it wasn't us, it was them. When we know that they're shooting at their own protesters that are anti-Hamas. These are Palestinians that are crying out, but they will be shot at and killed. But that death toll will say that the Israelis, the IDF killed those people. So we have to watch it. We have to be careful. And I implore people to get news from different sources so that you can cross-reference and see what's really going on in the world.
Again, I say too many bad men. Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.